And it is after 1 o'clock, I believe. Not quite. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is February the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. And we are starting the council meeting of the Township of Muskoka Lakes. We're going to call to order at 1:01. And I can confirm that between Zoom and here in present, we have quorum. In fact, I believe we have all members present. I don't see anyone missing. I can also confirm that the CAO, the deputy clerk, and other members of the senior management team and staff are present. In fact, it's the clerk that's present, not the deputy clerk. Welcome to all. I'm going to read the Land Acknowledgement Statement. We want to acknowledge that we are on lands traditionally occupied by Indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this territory for the benefit of future generations, and their stewardship throughout the ages is recognized. I would also like to read the public notice about this meeting. This meeting today is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka Lakes website and YouTube channel. By participating in this open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, your voice, and your comments being recorded and posted online. Before the meeting, we did seek public input on the agenda and was invited to be delivered to TML at muskokalakes.ca, and no correspondence was received. I will also acknowledge that there was a supplementary agenda, basically to allow a council session in closed session. The closed session will be held in the absence of the public pursuant to section 239 sub 2 of the Municipal Act 2001. And the rationale for that is that advice that is subject to solicitor client section 239 sub 2 sub F of the Municipal Act 2001 will be made available in addition to previously stated proposed or pending acquisition of disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239 sub 2 sub C of the Municipal Act 2001, and also a verbal update from the Director of Legislative Services, the clerk. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask all on council whether they have any disclosures of pecuniary interest that they wish to record at this time. And I'm seeing none on screen. I do see Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. I will be recusing myself from items 10J and 11A-1 because that is the road I live on. That's the Scarcliffe Road.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Then I will note that I will be recusing from section 8D under new business. And the rationale is that we are looking to appoint someone to the OPP Detachment Board, and I am the subject of that appointment, so I will step out and let that be handled in my absence. Thank you very much. Okay, so everybody knows, recalls, motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders. That's just done to expedite the process. And I would ask that voters physically raise their hand when we're called upon to vote and hold them until the mayor has confirmed the vote. If the vote is unclear, we will ask for a verbal vote, which shall be recorded by the clerk, but which will not be considered a recorded vote. Okay. So we'll get that part out of the way. And I believe the next step, we have a delegation, do we? We have invited, I believe it's Chris Foley, is that correct? From the Bala Legion. I'm not having a hard time reading my notes. So, oh, is that right now? Great. Welcome, Mr. Foley. How are you? You're still on mute.
How about that?
There you go. Better, much better.
Okay, great.
Sir, you have 5 minutes, so go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'd like to start by congratulating the MacTier hockey team for winning the tournament last year. The reason why I'm here today is I was here last year talking to you guys about the same thing. We're holding the second annual Poppy Cup. Last year, what we did is we had 4 teams that came and played, just as like a little refresher for you guys. We had 4 teams: Bala, MacTier, Port Carling, and Gravenhurst. And we had a 2-day tournament and followed up by awards and festivities at the Legion. And it was a full, successful day. Lots of people came to the community, and it was a really good event. The rink was filled up with spectators, so there was lots of buzz and excitement around it. So we're looking forward to doing it again this year. We raised, I don't have the number in front of me, but we raised, I think it was around $1,000, $1,100 for Pete Cowan's family after his passing last year. And we had a considerable donation for the food bank also, from players that just dropped everything off before the games, as that was part of their entry fee, was non-perishables for the food bank. So this year, what we'd like to do is reach out again and apply for the same cost coverage for the ice time for the Friday and the Saturday from 9 to 1 o'clock. We've already booked the time through the arena in Bala, and that would basically allow to drop our fee price for the tournament, because we don't want it to be a hindrance on the players, right? It's good because we had a lot of local guys together, and the last thing we want is to have somebody not want to play in the tournament because the cost is too high. So it makes sure that everyone that should be there is there. So that worked out really well last year. So we'd like to ask for the same thing, to see if you guys would be willing to cover the ice time. And above and beyond that, possibly, I spoke with James Cox briefly about the Muskoka Municipal Grant Program. And the costs that we incurred last year were for the referees and the food on top of that was really our only cost. And the referees were $750 last year, and the food was probably approximately around $500. So we were hoping to ask for $1,500 from the municipal grant program to cover those referees and the food cost. And what we would do is, rather than the money that went to paying that last year, we're hoping this year the cause, we're still going to continue to support Pete Cowan's family, but in the way of an RESP for his little girls. So every year for the Poppy Cup moving forward, all proceeds will be a donation into a fund for his little girls for their education in the future. So with the donation, we'll cover the referees and the food, and then hopefully the township will cover the ice time, and that will free up any extra cash that it's going into our donation purpose. And we'll also be doing a food drive again. And that's pretty much it. There is also a write-up on last year's tournament on Muskoka Today. If anybody's curious, I'm sure you could just Google it and find it, from the Poppy Cup last year by Muskoka Today. And I've spoken with Glenn Zavitz about this, and I've seen that he's got a bit of support for it. So I'd hope that other councillors would also, because I think it's a great cause, and created a lot of buzz around the community, and it was a really fun day, and I'd like to see it keep moving forward. That's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. Appreciate the work you're putting into this very worthy cause. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Foley? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you to Chris. Hi, Chris. I'm wondering if you could tell us what who is the benefactor, if you will, of this year's tournament donation?
It's going to be still for Pete Cowan's family. What Stephanie, his wife's, going to do is set up a RESP for his girls, and then we're going to contribute our proceeds into an RESP every year annually for the Poppy Cup.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'm going to thank you for your input. The matter comes to a vote in a few minutes, but we have some other housekeeping stuff that we're going to go through, and then we'll have a discussion. I think it's under 8B. We'll have a discussion But, and we'll certainly get back to you if you're not able to watch us live. We'll get back to you as soon as we've made the decision and ended this meeting. We'll be able to get back to you and let you know how the vote turned out. On the municipal grant piece, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if, oh, Mr. Cox is behind the podium there. If I'm not mistaken, that's just rolling out like this week, isn't it? In the next week or so. And I'm sure there'll be lots of guidance available to you to help make sure you get yourself filled out appropriately and get considered for that piece separately from the ice time issue. But thank you for your input today.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll move on to any other public comments. I don't think there are any, to my knowledge. Do we have anybody popping in? No, we're good. Okay. Then we're going to get to the consent agenda. There were 3 different sets of minutes that were circulated. January 16, 2024 GNF, January 16, 2024 Council, and January 19, 2024 Planning Committee. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. Haven't seen any recusal. I have a resolution that I will read. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that Council adopt and enact the following minutes and recommendations contained in the February 14, 2024 consent agenda and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Number 1, January 16, 2024 General and Finance Committee minutes and action items 2 through 4. Number 2, January 16, 2024 Council minutes. And number 3, January 19, 2024 Planning Committee minutes and action items 1 through 12 and 14. Anyone with any questions? Anyone with any comments? We'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Next up on the list is item 8, and this is new business. We'll start with the first one because it's 8A, and it's an update on the Muskoka Algonquin Healthcare. I'm going to give a verbal update. I'm going to be a little bit perhaps circumspect in some of the things because this is an ongoing issue. It's also very sensitive where we are in the discussions and the movement of it. And as we've found out over the course of the last 14 days, it's also pretty volatile. It's sparking quite an amazing reaction in some parts. I frankly have no idea how much everybody is aware or has been keeping up with what's going on, but I can distill it down to this. About 3 weeks ago, I think it was the 26th of January, it was a Friday, there was a meeting of mayors of the basically local share committee, the mayors and the CAOs, and a new model, a new version of the hospital model was unveiled at that time. It was embargoed for discussion purposes until the following Monday when there was going to be a public press release. And I can tell you that a group of doctors, I believe all of the doctors in the catchment area, which goes far beyond just the District of Muskoka, extends up into, I'm going to screw up the name of this, Algonquin Township. A big area, but all the doctors had been given notice a couple of days before the local share committee that there was a planned change to the original forecast. The original plan, and the plan that has certainly been the subject of discussion and debate throughout the time I've been on council, certainly while I've been mayor, called for 2 full service acute care hospitals, one in Bracebridge and one in Huntsville. And the plan that came out identifies 2 hospitals, one of them in Huntsville with considerably more beds. I believe is it 140 beds? I can't remember how many beds are up that way. Is a full service acute care hospital. And the one that was proposed or is proposed to be developed in Bracebridge is in fact described by medical people, not by me, as an ambulatory care center with an emergency department on the front end of it. So they both had emergency capabilities. They both had some surgical capabilities, but the one in Huntsville is geared towards longer stay acute care patients who go in, get whatever treatment they need, and essentially stay on the ward for as long as it takes till they're well enough to go home. The work that would be done or proposed to be done in the Bracebridge Hospital is geared towards day surgeries, I guess. Anyone who's shows up and presents at the Emerge ward, who in the opinion of the Emerge staff has a likely stay longer than 3 days, is essentially going to wind up in Huntsville for the back end of their treatment. They'll get stabilized. They won't get sent away in pain or in hurt, maybe in pain, but they won't. They'll get sorted out first, and then essentially for the longer term section, they would be somehow motored up to Huntsville for the balance of their treatment until they were well enough to go home. Derek and I are on the local share committee for the township, and literally, I think it was later that night, maybe early Saturday morning, the doctors who had previewed this before us, the doctors in South Muskoka, who feel particularly vulnerable and particularly compromised by this change, issued a letter that has been bounced around on social media. I think everybody's seen 20 versions of it, basically calling for people in this region, and by this region, I would say the Township of Muskoka Lakes, town of Bracebridge, and the town of Gravenhurst, to rise up and protest the fact that what was being left in Bracebridge wasn't adequate care for the people who live in these 3 municipalities. It came out on the Saturday, which obviously was earlier than anyone had planned. There was sort of a delayed response. There had been planned a series of, I think, 7 public meetings, 5 of them in person, 2 online, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been 6 and 2, 1 in each community. There was one here in Port Carling. There was one in Bracebridge. Councillor Burry and I went to a couple of them, one up in Dwight. Is that where we were? Up in Dwight. And we were also at Gravenhurst. A few of us were the ones in Bracebridge, and then the Port Carling one was after that. As it moved south, as it got away from Dwight and came down to the south part of the region, there was pretty loud opposition. There was some, I would say, inappropriate physical reaction, people who were pushing and shoving, and not a brawl, but it was just highly disrespectful. We'll just call it that behavior. And that sort of was certainly the circumstance. I think it started in Gravenhurst. It came through in the first Bracebridge meeting. Bracebridge, they missed the numbers. They booked a hall for 300 people and they had like 700 people show up. So 400 people, some of them left, some of them banged on the windows, some of them blew their horns in the parking lot. It was not a happy event. But anyhow, the board continued with their presentation. They continued to showcase their plans. There's really good news that bankrolling this whole thing is a $225 or $227 million commitment from local donors and from local municipalities, including the Township of Muskoka Lakes. And there's roughly $1 billion commitment from the provincial government. But it's generally believed that the numbers fall short by as much as $400 million of enough funds to build the 2 hospitals the way they were originally planned. So I guess just flash forward till today, I've been working with Derek and I have been, or the CAO and I have been working with the mayor and the CAO of Bracebridge, and also with the mayor of Gravenhurst, to try to bring together 2 sides that are clearly polarized and clearly opposite from each other. The one group is a group of 41 doctors that have practiced or continue to practice in and around South Muskoka, Bracebridge, mostly around the Bracebridge Hospital. And the other side is the board of directors of MAC, the hospital board. We have no jurisdiction over either. We're really just trying hard to make sure that in the sort of fractious behavior that's carrying on, we don't lose the opportunity to build a new hospital. That's at the middle of all that we're trying to do, is bring two groups of people together and get them focused on building hospitals. The allocation of $1 billion from the province doesn't have a firm timeline on it, but there's lots of other communities that are lined up for hospital money that would gladly slip in our place if we can't get our act together and get after this money on a kind of a happy way sooner rather than later. The meetings continue. I met with the board of MAC on, I believe it was Monday night this week. Late Friday afternoon, we're meeting with the doctors again. At some point in time, they need to find a way to bridge the gap. I personally think not much is going to happen until they find out how to work better together. They're never going to agree on everything. I can tell you that categorically, but they do need to de-escalate the tension a little bit. They need to find a way to identify maybe common ground already and some goals they think they can work on and work out. I don't think the community wounds, and there are many. Has anybody, just out of curiosity, anybody here attended any of these meetings other than the ones I mentioned? So, there's some deep antagonism going on, and I don't think that's going to get fixed until the doctors and the MAC board appear to be working together with a common goal, and so that's what we're trying to do. I don't know how much time we have. Our MPP, Minister Smith, I understand, went back and spoke with the Minister of Health. We do have some time. There was a press release issued by, I think, Minister Smith as well as, or separately, by the MAC board saying, we've got a couple more weeks than maybe we thought. We've got to make productive use of this time. We've got to work together to build the bridge and find a way to solve this problem. And I'm hopeful. We're gonna stay on it as much as we need to. And again, this is a provincial matter. The MAC board has its own reporting structure. It doesn't report through here or even through district. So our interest is purely trying to find the best interests of our community, make sure that the healthcare needs of the residents of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, whether they be permanent residents, whether they be here part of the year, whether they be here as tourists. Everybody who visits here deserves or needs to know that there's adequate care not too far away. And I'm certainly not in any position to judge what adequate care is either. I mean, I don't pretend to know anything about hospital design. They won't let me, but that's my update, and as concise as I could possibly make it. Perhaps if anyone else wants to chime in, I don't know. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you. And I won't repeat the timeline or the status of the project, but I do think it's important that community and our committee understands that I did attend alongside a few of us to the Bracebridge meeting, and it had really been building. And I think you said it quite nicely. It really was a very disruptive meeting, and to the point that there was people who felt very unsafe. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that after leaving that meeting, there was very purposeful intention from the mayor, myself, and from staff, as well as the OPP and others, to ensure that our community here in Port Carling the next night was feeling safe. And we did our best to facilitate a meeting in a very, it was a very highly divisive culture. And, not everybody loves not having the chance to come to the mic, but we really worked hard. And I just think it's important that this group knows that. There was a lot of people who put a lot of time and effort in behind the scenes to try and keep the community safe and try to give people a civil ability to communicate what was on their brains. And I would like to say thank you to staff, to Mayor Kelley and the others that did participate in that, and to our community, because I felt that there was real leadership. And I have to tell you, I woke up the next day and what I was saying to everybody, I've never been more proud than the leadership that I felt that our little community showed on such an highly charged and highly emotional topic. And I still feel like that today. So I do want to say thank you. And I know that this is going to be something we all have to understand. We have to get our level of understanding up. And even though this is not something that we own at our table, we are the leaders in our community. And if we can continue to foster that environment, that we get to enjoy here. I mean, yesterday there was a long meeting. Today at our meeting, I really have learned through this last 2 weeks watching this unfold, the importance of the public process that we follow here and allowing people to come and speak to the mic, to get their 5 minutes. And that's a really important thing. This day and age, I think that's the single most important thing our role can be, or at least we are trying to facilitate, is giving everybody a chance. So again, I will stop talking, but I do think it needs to be acknowledged that there was a lot of effort put in behind the scenes to try to lead by example last Wednesday. So thank you very much to staff and others.
Sorry, Director Hammond, CAO Hammond, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just to echo Councillor Mazan's comments, there were other community leaders in that room. District Chair Lehman, Mayor of Bracebridge, Mayor of Huntsville. And I think the showing that and the leadership that Mayor Kelley provided in facilitating that meeting really stood our organization and this council well in the broader community. I think it was also interesting that the following meeting in Bracebridge, MAC organization, administration, board members asked Mayor Kelley if he was going to be facilitating again. And I think they tried to reflect the format that we used here successfully. So I really do think it's a tribute to our organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Let the record show if we run late, it's these two. Anyone with any questions? I'm sure there is. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. No questions, because I think a lot of questions came up through those sessions. I attended the virtual and I attended the Port Carling one, and I applaud the team that is trying to find a middle ground and to bring two parties that seem to be at opposite ends together. I think that is great. I did not comment, but my observation of from all of them is that there basically are three constraints. There are capital dollars. And one that was brought up in Port Carling, there's operating dollars, because right now both hospitals are running at a deficit. And the third one, and all these three must be looked at in conjunction, they can't be separated, is staffing. If you can solve those three, then you'll have a path forward. But you've got, all those three have to be harmonized, or we're going to have issues after. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Burry, tell us about the elephant in the room.
Thank you. So what's not really being discussed is what is commonly called as ALC, or alternate level of care. It has been a problem at our hospitals. It's a problem. It's a system problem in Ontario, where we have patients that are in acute care beds that don't belong there anymore. They've gone through the surgery or the various other pieces. They need to be moved to an alternate level, which could be palliative care. It could be long-term care. It could be an old person's residence, or it could be moving back home with their parents or their children, or however it is. Our two hospitals have, for the past 20 years, been running between 30 and 50% of the beds with ALC patients. So when we hear anybody say that we're running at 130%, you need to take half that off, because half those beds should be discharged to another place. Part of our problem is we don't have another place to put them, and the district, in their infinite wisdom, decided to spend $30 million putting in private bathrooms as opposed to putting in 30 other bedrooms. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. We are at the root of our own problem in many respects. So alternate level of care is a big deal in our place, and a lot of people that are complaining about needing to go and see mom and dad, and they need to be 30 minutes away. Mom and dad actually shouldn't be in the acute care hospital. They should be somewhere else. So we need to think about that. And hospitals are the most expensive form of healthcare. So we've actually got a system problem where we've bumped it up to the $2,000 a night, of which Toronto is now charging people $4,000 a night if they're potentially to be discharged, and you choose to have your loved one stay in the hospital. They'll say, "That's great. What's your Visa card number?" It's $4,000 a night. So we're not there yet, and we've got a disconnect with doctors discharging and with our discharge people actually having a backbone enough to do that. The other piece that's not really being looked at in its entirety is the changing face of healthcare. Diagnostic imaging and the use of AI and other decision support isn't being factored into what is going to be 7 years or more away from us. And we're still looking at, as a community, at building 2 identical hospitals that were the state of the art in 1965, not what's here and now. The vast majority of the people around this table, when we were born, our moms spent 4 or 5 days in hospital. Now, obstetrics, unless there's a problem, is day surgery. You're in and you're out unless there's a problem. If there's a problem, agreed, you need emergency and you need that care. And I think the model that the hospital board is bringing to us would allow for that. I can tell you, when I was vice chair of this hospital's board 15 years ago, we had the same problem with obstetrics. I'm not having my kid born in the other town. And part of it is, you know, the cost of being able to operate 2 identical hospitals within 18 kilometers of each other. We're not Toronto. We can't have the specialization. We can't, if we've got a problem at one hospital, use the underground tunnels underneath university to get to the other hospital. So we need to have what is in you know, I think where we should be focused, a made in Muskoka kind of alternative. But you know, building 2 identical acute care hospitals in the 1960s or 70s model is probably not the way to go. We have a lot of doctors that are opposed to moving. I'll also point out that doctors control the supply of doctors, and that is a problem.
I thought you were going to talk about one elephant.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for that. There's a lot of issues. A lot of them are internal politics in the medical community. I think that's one of the big obstacles that needs to be overcome. Okay, anybody else with a comment, question? All right, we're going to move on then to item 8B, which was the delegation that we heard from Chris Foley regarding the Poppy Cup, Bala Legion Poppy Cup. There's no other report. We're going to have a discussion on that generally. Anybody with any comments or well, comments first? I can read the resolution if you wish. Oh, there's no resolution. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm mixed up. Draft resolution. Got it. All right. Tell me about this. Lead this discussion. Who wants to start? Councillor Zavitz, you look like you're eager.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess in terms of this particular event, it's year 2, and I believe as we around the table supported the ice aspect of last year, and it was well received, and it's always great to generate interest in our communities on a weekend and an arena playing that Canadian game. So, I guess at minimum, the ask would be to have the same dispensation, if you will, this year as last, which is to have the township comp the ice time. I think there was a secondary ask for funding, but that would of course be a grant scenario. So I would certainly support doing this again in terms of that effort for this particular event, and looking for support from others.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa, you have your hand up, and then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I actually wanted a little bit better clarification of what the ask was, because it wasn't clear to me. I heard I heard more than 2 issues. And so essentially it was the request for the ice time, which is what I believe we're discussing today. But and then they're going to be applying for other funds, and it wasn't very clear to me what in fact they were applying for.
Thank you for that. And just for clarification, my understanding was there was 2 asks. One was for a waiver of the ice time fee so they could hold this tournament. And the second one, which would come back under the community grants program, was going to be an application. I actually can't remember what it was, but an application for some funding separate and apart from the fee waiver. Actually, that's a good question. I do not recall what the ice time waiver amounts to in dollars. Sorry, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I can provide some background information to the tournament itself and hours of ice and the rental costs. They've booked the ice for 7 hours over the 2 days, and it equates to about $1,275 in ice rental costs that they are asking to be waived.
Thank you. Anyone, Councillor Roberts, you have a question for Mr. Moore first while he's up there or not? It doesn't matter. You can-
Okay, yeah, it's just for me where this question, this is a great cause. I just was more interested in the timing. This is the timing of the grant program. Because if we could get them the grant program, then we're not taking it from, you know, waiving the fees, and we're putting the money where I feel we should be pulling from. Because when we did the budget, there was a lot of conversation about, you know, these onesies and twosies. This is a fantastic ask. And they're doing fantastic work, and they're helping out the community, everything they want. But we're trying to channel back in everything into the grant program. So is there a way to have an intake for this small amount of money, or for amount of money sooner than later, so we could accommodate this? That's my
Mr. Moore?
first one.
It's a great question. I'm not sure if Mr. Cox wants to speak to it in more depth, just in terms of timeline of the grant program and what he was thinking.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Cox.
Thank you, and through you, Your Worship. So the community grant program for 2024, as was mentioned during the delegation, we will start accepting applications for that next week is the plan. The application window will be open for a month, and then staff will review all the applications and come back to council with recommendations about how those grants should be awarded this year. So the timing of the grant program doesn't necessarily align with this event. The initial advice that was provided to Mr. Foley was that they had the opportunity to apply for the grant, recognizing that it would not be approved in time for their event, but any costs that they incur between applying and a final decision being made would be at their own risk if the grant was not approved.
Go ahead.
So this is just my concern, is that we've set money aside, and what we're doing basically saying, we'll find the money someplace else. It's only a small amount of money. It's $1,200 or $1,500, but if we keep getting and giving into these, or not giving, I'm sorry, not giving into them, awarding these because we feel good, we're sort of dancing around our budget. I just think maybe we should consider that there is the grant committee. We don't want to override that, but there may be times they're saying, you know, we as a committee say that this is recognized as a really good thing, and we'll knock off with, I forget, we had 25,000 in the bucket right now.
20,000.
20,000. Okay, we'll say, okay, now it's down with the small amount, because at the point in time, we think it's best that we decide that this is what we do. I don't know whether that follows protocol, but it's something that keeps us in line with our direction from our budget. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards, then Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you very much. Maybe I'm a little confused. I thought they asked for the ice time, which we were passing, and I will definitely support you on that. I will second that. The second was the cost of food and referees, and I believe it was approximately $1,500, give or take. Is that right, Mr. Cox? 1,500? So I was listening. Thank you. So no, that was for ice time. But that is different, because if they didn't hold this tournament and the ice was sitting there empty, we wouldn't be getting anything. So I would do it again, when people will come out and volunteer for something like this, I think we should support them. I will support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Along the same with what Councillor Edwards is saying, I was curious about what the revenues that would have been brought in nor on any other weekend. You can't use last year as an example, but for the 10 years earlier, how much revenue actually got in, brought in on that weekend. But I also thought I heard it the way that Alan has described it. And I didn't hear staff actually say, just the option that they had choices to choose from. But I would in fact agree that waiving of the ice fees was what I was focusing on at this time, not the actual grant application thing, because I do believe that it was two separate things.
Mr. Moore, is there any comment on that, or have we got something wrong?
So just make sure this is on. Through you, your worship. No, I think that understanding is what we've heard today. They've come forward with the request for the waiving of the ice rental fees similar to last year. And then they intend to follow up with the grant program to offset costs for refs, food, etc. And I think the main reason behind that is they don't necessarily want to absorb all the costs associated with running the tournament without knowing the answers related to the grant program in time, because it's most likely that the tournament occurs before we come back to council with awarding of the grant applications themselves. So I think that's kind of the situation at hand.
And before I go to Councillor Mazan, have you spoken to them about possibly building in the ice time as part of the grant this year for use next year, so that we don't have this problem next February?
It's certainly an option. I think Mr. Cox would be happy to I think as Mr. Cox explained, the alternative is they include it all in their grant application for this year. The only issue is they would have to kind of, pay for those rental fees, et cetera, up hand, and then basically be reimbursed for it if they were successful with the grant program. So,
thank you. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you. If I could just have a reminder from staff of the policy as it relates to the rentals and when we waive. And it's linked currently today, because I think we're about to go through this process again, to the different kinds of events as to when and how we waive our fees, correct? Could you just broadly say what are the different categories and which one would this one fit into today?
Yes, through you, Chair, Councillor Mazan's correct. We did in late fall just review our user fee policy. And to that effect, the policy is very clear that events occurring in the arena facilities pay the fee identified in the fee bylaw. And that's those took effect January 1st of the new year. And that's why the delegation is before you today. Because as per the policy, they would be required to pay the required fees of $1,275.
Quick supplemental.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Just because I need the reminder. I can't remember. I thought we had talked about there's events that are being run as community events. And then there are events that are being run that have a giving back to the community component. And those are two different price points, are they not?
Through you, Chair. That is correct. We did in the new policy kind of group, if you want to say, types of uses and organizations. Typically through the policy where you see maybe fees waived for those types of events, programs, activities is through our community centers. So the use of arenas and sports parks, for instance, the policy states that fees will remain as identified in the fee bylaw. So community centers, there's a different perspective on those types of events, etc.
And just
Do you have a follow-up?
well, I think it's because I hadn't followed it along that we have just passed this in January. So this is now why this is coming forward now, is that there is a fee according to the policy that we have set. Is that correct?
That's correct. And
okay.
I should state that that part of the policy hasn't changed. And that's why this came forward last year as well. For arena rentals, there's always been the fees associated within the fee bylaw. So with the new policy, that process and that part of it actually didn't change. Where we did make updates was more to the community center side and certain program uses of them.
Okay. Councillor Zavitz, I don't see anyone else.
Thank you, through you. You know, it would be my preference if this was more formal. Clearly, I guess there's a time factor and likely a lack of understanding out there in the public in terms of an event, holding an event like this. I think in this case, I certainly would like to see this separated so that any opportunities they may have to come forward with for granting is a whole separate thing, and it's not contingent on anything here today. And if I might, just purely the ice time rental, I see no difference between this day and 12 months ago. Same event, raised great money for the community. I'm not going to sell it, but I certainly would be in support with Councillor Edwards of waiving the ice time fee for this event for only this year, with the proviso that they, to your point, build in funding for next year.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Essentially, I did want to sell it, quite frankly, because I attended the event and it was a community event. It wasn't about, the Legion. And in fact, there's so many events that the Legion is trying desperately to carry out to keep the community involved, because it's an awfully quiet area to be living in for the next few months. So anyhow, I hope that we support the Legion at this point.
Sorry, anyone else? I'm going to have a quick thing to say, and then we'll have to bring this resolution to the table, get 66 and 2/3 or 70% vote. Is that what we do? 2/3 vote to get it on first, because there is no resolution in the agenda. And then assuming it clears that hurdle, we'll take the vote on the main thing. The challenge that I have with this is both when we went through the schedule of fees, and also when we went through a budgeting exercise, we said the budget only works if we stick to the budget. This was one of those things that, it reminds me of that, I think it's Seinfeld thing, anybody can take a reservation, not everybody can hold a reservation. We took a good budget. We got to stick to it. It really is important. And unfortunately, 1,000 here and 1,000 there will make a difference. I think I would be willing to support getting this motion on the floor for discussion. We've already had the discussion, I hope, and we'll take a vote on it. But on the understanding that this is part of, what forward planning, 13 months out or 12 months out when they're doing, 11 months out when they're doing their application for community grants, bake in this so that next year we've already made this decision. We've granted it out of a separate pool of money. This erosion of the fee schedule is an unhealthy thing as far as I'm concerned. It has to stand for something. And anyhow, so unless there's anything else to say, I'm going to read a resolution to basically deal with the main resolution. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Whereas section 3.5.1.6. Did they get a vote? Whereas 3.5.1.6 of Township Council Procedure Bylaw 2019-079 provides that any motion may be introduced without notice if council, without debate, dispenses with the notice by a 2/3 vote. Now therefore be it resolved that Township Council hereby dispenses with notice to consider and vote on the following: 2024 Bala Legion Poppy Cup fee waiving request. So this calls for no debate, no discussion. A quick question. All in favor? Just hold it up while we make sure we have 2/3. We clearly have 2/3. Yeah. All right, that carries. Thank you. And then I'm going to read the second one. Also moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Whereas council received a delegation regarding full waiving of user fees for the Bala Arena facility on March 22 and March 23 for the 2024 Bala Legion Poppy Cup. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to waive the user fees for the Bala Legion branch number 424 for a rental of the Bala Arena facility for the 2024 Bala Legion Poppy Cup in the amount of $1,275. Any comments or discussion? All in favor? That carries. It's been a different time zone over there. Okay, we've got it. Thank you very much. That carries. Sorry, yes.
Thank you. And I just wanted to follow up. I think you're coaching for going into next year. I was about to vote against that, but with the intention of these are the exact type of examples where we need to get a lot more, because we've just gone against a policy we've just voted in. And so it has nothing to do, in my mind. Of course, we're all here sitting at this table to foster healthy communities and getting encouraging activities. But where we get held to account is our financial resilience. And we've just sat through a really big budget. So I just would ask that this group and others are staying, like, we're all on this together. And that's all I'll say about that. Thank you.
Councillor,
I fully support with Councillor Mazan said. And I believe that we've really got to draw a line in the sand and go on public record that it's going to be hard to get for us to break our budget mandate. So thank you.
those words are often spoken after we've broken them. Thank you for that. Oh, sorry, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much. I agree with that, and I think we should double our budget, because what we're doing is taking these service groups and any other group that asks are going to be shortchanged. So we've got to look at it and figure it out and add it, maybe double or triple it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next one is to consider a draft resolution. And I believe it was brought to us originally by Councillor Nishikawa. And I know the one I have in front of me is seconded by Councillor McIntyre. It's a rather long one, so rather than read it, it was published in the agenda in its entirety. And if everyone's comfortable, we'll just reference that. If they want to hear my voice, we will read it. But I think it would be useful, perhaps Councillor Nishikawa, you can explain the origin of this and talk to us about what it means and why we should deal with it. Page number? I don't have a page number.
Sorry, I'm not going to get my voice working properly. I'm going to ask if the clerk could mention this, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Nishikawa did ask me to add this onto the agenda. This is something that the organization AMO has asked municipalities to support in regards to it's calling for the province of Ontario to commit to undertaking with AMO a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario. So this is coming through the organization AMO.
Thank you for that. Director Peroshi. Anyone with any comments or questions? Everybody comfortable that they know what it says, having read the agenda? Then I am simply going to acknowledge that it was, as I said, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. And I will call the question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Whoop. Okay, this next one I'm leaving. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Mazan will take it over. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Muskoka Lakes recommends to the Council of the District Municipality of Muskoka that Mayor Kelley be appointed to the Township's representative on the Bracebridge OPP Detachment Board. I have read the resolution. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Kent. Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry, for my benefit, I appreciate that. Councillor Mazan, Chair Mazan. For my benefit, could you explain to me what this person does on the detachment board? And number two, how the mayor appoints himself to a position? I have no problem with it. I was just wondering what the background was.
So just for clarification, it's actually the council of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, not the mayor. As you can see, he has recused, but as far as the actual role itself, I will ask CAO Hammond if he could, or Director Peroshi, if she could please explain. Thank you.
So this is a fairly new board, and the district has been setting up this board. They've been working on it for some time now. So it is run through the district. And there'll be 3 OPP detachments across the District of Muskoka, 1 in Huntsville, 1 in Bracebridge, and 1 in Georgian Bay. And they'll oversee kind of the governments of OPP. So this is to appoint Mayor Kelley to the Bracebridge detachment or board.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. All those opposed? Seeing none. Mayor Kelley has a new role. Adding to his list.
Up in formal order, the OPP could be what? We call him staff superintendent LLC. It's already big enough. If you don't listen to his daughter.
We are live. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to item number 10, and that is senior management team reports. I'll make sure I get these in the same order that I had written them down. First one is climate change adaptation. I understand Ms. Walker is.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kelley, and good afternoon, everyone. So the report in front of you today is regarding the successful submission for an external funding grant through the ICLEI Canada and OCRA Staff Capacity Program, which will provide 160 hours of staff time to help the township complete some of the action items outlined in this township's climate change adaptation plan. The township and 4 other area municipalities made a joint application and have formed a working group for this project. There are no financial implications, but part of the agreement requires that each working group member contributes approximately 17 hours to this project over the course of the next year. Staff have recommended that council endorse the use of the grant and authorize the Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability to be authorized to execute all external funding agency grant documentation as required. I have no other comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone with any questions? Seeing none, either here or online, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that council endorse the use of the proposed Muskoka Lakes portion of 560 hours of ICLEI/ORCCA staff support from the ICLEI Canada Ontario Resource Centre for Climate Adaptation (ORCCA) staff capacity program to complete various recommendations of Muskoka's Regional Climate Change Adaptation Plan, and that the Director of Development Services and Environmental Sustainability be authorized to execute all external funding agency grant documentation as required. Any comment? Any question? All in favor? Well, that carries. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Next up is Mr. Sharp, and you're here to talk about the comprehensive zoning bylaw process. Please, welcome.
stand for questions. Thank you.
Councillor Nishikawa, did you catch that? No.
Okay,
Okay,
well, let me start over. Thank you, Mayor Kelley.
welcome, Mr. Sharp.
And good afternoon, members of council. Per recommendation of Planning Committee in January of this year, I prepared a report with attached terms of reference for a regular update to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. I have recommended that the terms of reference be approved and that staff be authorized to prepare and issue a request for a proposal to obtain consulting services to complete the update. I'm excited to proceed with this project and I look forward to working with council and the community. I stand for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any questions? Councillor Kent, then Councillor Bosenworth. We'll go with Councillor Kent first.
Sorry, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I actually had a constituent ask me this question, which is, and it may be naive, but I think it would be helpful if you explained to me and other potentially new councillors, apart from maybe Rob, Councillor Bosworth, why we need external consultants to help us do this process.
Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your question, Councillor Kent. I think it's just purely based on, the scale of the project. It requires a lot of time and effort for those councillors that are sitting around the table that were involved in the official plan update. You can vouch for the amount of work that goes on not only around this table, but behind the scenes to get a project like this up and running and to keep moving it forward as well. And that's not to mention all of the work that we have to do within the planning division and its daily operations to keep that well-oiled machine moving along as well. Thank you.
So
thank you for that.
Can I just follow up, Mayor Kelley? If
sure,
you don't mind,
go
just
ahead.
a quick one.
Yep.
So it's actually just, and this is for clarity for me, for the constituents that I was talking to. It's actually not so much expertise, it's really just time available from internal resources, which I understand completely. In no way a criticism, just a comment.
Mr. Sharp, you wish to respond to that?
That is correct. I believe between Mr. Pink and myself, we certainly do have the expertise to undertake such a project. I think it's just a matter of bench strength and making sure that we can move it along as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Burry, you're next.
Thank you. Through you, I'm just going to remind council that we, during the budget deliberations, talked about the difference between consultants and contractors. And while this is a consultant in terms, this is really a contractor. We need more cycles. We need more horsepower. We don't have it internally to do some of the doing. We have the expertise, but we don't have it. It's not a full-time headcount we wish to bring on. So we are going to hire people by a contract to help our very capable and competent staff do the job. So maybe some of us need to have the difference between contractor and consultant changed on some of these pieces. But, I think we need to understand our staff is great, but they need help sometimes. And this is a way to avoid bringing on full-time headcount.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Councillor, sorry, I forgot. Councillor Bosenworth, I called you earlier, but go ahead.
That's all right, Your Worship. Just a question. These projects, like the official plan, ended up having a life pretty much of its own. And I was just wondering how we contract for something that we may, say have 500 hours worth of work in, and we end up finding that it's going to take us 900 or 1200. I was just curious how we would expect that to be handled when we get responses to the RFP.
Mr. Sharp or Mr. Director Pink?
I think I may look Mr. Pink for his experience here. Thank you.
Just sorry, if you may just repeat the question just momentarily. There, thank you.
When we put out these RFPs, we outline the steps that we are asking them to go through. And deliver a final product to us, which is an approved comprehensive zoning bylaw. But that process could, as I said, have a life of its own and grow in the amount of time it takes us to do, as it did with our official plan. Many, many more meetings than anybody thought. And I was just wondering how that is handled from a financial point of view and what we would expect to see in a returned RFPs.
Director Pink.
Thank you, through your worship. I think as councillors are aware, planning committee and council in general are heavily involved in those projects, and usually they often do take on a life of their own. And often a number of additional meetings are at the request of council and committee. So typically staff will update through the various reports that we bring forward through the process where the budget is in relation to the project, and advise council that certainly more public engagement can occur, more meetings with a consultant, but there are costs associated with that, and that's brought forward through those interim updates and through ultimately the budget process.
Thank you.
CAO Hammond would like to have a word on that too.
Just following on Mr. Pink's comments, I think if we look back to the official plan project, and I think that's where you were alluding to, I think you've heard on a number of occasions from Mr. Sharp and Mr. Pink that the quantum of public meetings through that process far exceeded anything that they'd ever seen in their experience along with a consultant. That's at the policy stage. And I think I would echo their comments that I'd never seen that many public meetings before, but I think we all collectively agreed as we were going through the process that we needed all those touch points to get it right. I'd suggest to you that you're going to be in the same situation when it comes to the zoning bylaw, perhaps even more, because that's really where the rubber hits the road and people can understand the tangible nature of a zoning bylaw. So to the extent that the project has a budget, if there's going to be that level of public engagement, it will be exceeded.
Thank you for that. Councillor Kent.
And thank you for taking my subsequent question. I'm just wondering if, I know that Councillor Bosworth, as head of planning, has been very diligently keeping a list of all the areas that have become, and that we understand now to be lots of areas of issue that we hope to work through as part of this process. What process are we going to have to engage council in the early development rather than just seeing a draft of a bylaw when it comes through the next, whenever that comes to a formal meeting? I'd like to have more engagement from council members.
Great. Who's that directed to?
It's really directed towards the, I guess it would be both Mr. Pink and Councillor Bosworth. I'd love to hear his input on this.
Go ahead, Director Pink.
Thank you, through your worship. I think as you will note in the appendix and the general approach of the terms of reference, I think what you're alluding to is really phase two. Certainly the intention would not to be sort of the first touch point being a draft bylaw in front of planning committee and council. There will be a kickoff meeting and extensive technical review, issues identification and background research. And then those concepts and a directions report will be coming to planning committee to discuss, certainly before any draft comprehensive zoning bylaw is updated. So hope that helps.
That helps me. Thank you very much. And
I have no further comment.
Yeah,
That's the way I read it, and I'm happy with that process.
That's perfect. Okay, I'm going to read a resolution. I see nothing else right now. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that the terms of reference attached as Appendix I or 1 to report Plan 2024-019 respecting an update to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw be approved, and that staff be authorized to prepare and issue a request for proposal based on said terms of reference to obtain consulting services to complete an update to the township's comprehensive zoning bylaw. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, I believe, thank you, sir. Thanks, Mr. Sharp, is who's next? Mr. Cox, are you up next, sir, please? Welcome back.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. My report this afternoon is a follow-up to the direction from January's General and Finance Committee meeting regarding enhancements and amendments to the Community Improvement Plan Private Sector Incentive Program policy. As Council will recall, staff were directed to make these several changes and enhancements to the policy with the aim of enhancing it and improving it for future years. These amendments are summarized in my report and the attached policy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about them. I'll also note that, as Council will recall, at that same meeting, staff were directed to begin the process of designating the entire township as a community improvement project area, and also look at revising and potentially expanding the boundaries of the existing project areas that are included in the community improvement plan. That process is progressing separately to the policy changes that are outlined here and will be detailed in a report that will be coming back to the General and Finance Committee at a future date. I would be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Thank you for that. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Cox. Thanks for the very insightful presentation. So I'm just going to hold you to the information that we're looking for in terms of expanding the boundaries in Bala very specifically. So a selfish ask, but could you have any sense of when that might be? How far down the road is that going to be?
Through you, Your Worship, I am hoping to have the background report ready for Council's consideration at either their March or April meetings.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I know that this is not part of the topic, as I've tried to look through anything that says anything about accessibility. And I don't know when the opportunity is to bring this up, but has there been a discussion with the businesses of making their buildings accessible by 2025, which I believe is the requirement? So I've seen in other municipalities where we have, well, in fact, if I used Bracebridge as an example, they went to the high school and worked with economic development and the chamber and things to come up with just the ledges to get into a storefront, I guess. But I'm just wondering when could a conversation, because this is all involved with this. So for instance, like I think people should start applying for monies to do those sort of things, but I'm not sure that we've given any kind of direction. I'm just not clear.
And that was directed to Mr. Cox?
Yes,
No.
sorry.
Please, Mr. Cox.
Oh, thank you. And through you, Your Worship. So certainly, this is exactly the intent of having accessibility upgrades be a high priority area in the private sector incentive program to ensure that businesses have the tools to make these sorts of physical upgrades to the community or to their businesses. As part of the implementation of the updated policy, the plan is to do a series of communications out to the business community and to the general public to highlight the availability of the different private sector incentive program streams, with a focus again on the accessibility grant when we highlight that particular stream. I also know that the Chamber of Commerce has done a lot of good work with their members in terms of promoting accessibility and also promoting awareness of these incentive programs. And so we'd aim to continue working with them to encourage our business community to make their storefronts as accessible as possible in compliance with provincial law.
Thank you. I'm going to read a resolution and move it forward. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that the updates to policy C-FS-18, Community Improvement Plan Private Sector Incentive Program, attached to staff report CED-2024-004 as Appendix 1 be approved. Any comment? Councillor Bosenworth.
I hesitate to bring this up because it's a real nitpick, but it comes from another board that I'm on. On shoreline structures, the section on shoreline structures, the rationale says that businesses in Bala and Port Carling and cottage owners on adjacent lakes wish to see an increased number and frequency of boating, pleasure, traffic. The Safe Quiet Lakes, the other board that I'm on, has done many studies that said cottagers do not want more traffic, they want less traffic. And I just would like to have that part removed from the policy because I don't think it's true.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you. It's timely. Yeah, sorry. Councillor Mazan.
Thank you, and through you. Now I'm trying to find in which section that is in.
It's on page 95, 2.2 dash rationales in the first line, about 6 words over.
Director Pink, did you have your flag up?
Thank you. Just to confirm, it's the reference to cottage owners that you wish removed? Yes. I think I would look to the clerk. I think we can easily make that change if you can do so through resolution.
Do you have a resolution to do that?
I don't know if I guess I'd look to you as to the process, but I'm clear on the change that's requested. If council is in agreement with that, I think we can easily make that change. Just look to you as to the best process to do so.
Thank you for that. Councillor Mazan.
Well, thank you. I appreciate a supplemental then. I think perhaps it's a change in how it's being positioned. It's not about increasing necessarily traffic. I think the intention, and I don't want to put words into it, in our discussions in the CIP was to allow for high pressure points like Port Carling and Bala to improve the docking facilities for those particularly on islands and others that would already be on the lake to improve the access, and that there's been huge pressures in that area, in both areas, to facilitate that. So I don't think it's a matter of trying to do a whole whack of new pressures, but that was a huge part of the discussion in the CIP.
Councillor Bosenworth.
I agree with you completely. I think this policy is trying to improve the ability to get places on the shore to park your dock, but it is not a policy that cottagers want to encourage more boating. They want more docking.
Which is that I just think it's a nuance on language.
Mazan,
But
did you have a
my
follow-up?
apologies for having a debate. Your two chairs, sorry. I think it's important that staff who is new to it might not have been privy to some of these discussions that were had. And I think it is a language thing at this point.
Let me just throw one thing out
Thank
there.
you.
Is eliminating the word, what is it, cottage owners fatal to anybody? Director Pink.
Thank you. Through you, I think eliminating simply the reference to cottage owners may solve the problem, but I certainly wouldn't disagree with Councillor Mazan's comments. I think they're well taken. That I think really the goal is to increase the accessibility for cottages and businesses to access those docks. We can certainly readjust the language. Either works for me.
CAO Hammond, and then we'll go back to
Well, I have a
Councillor
suggestion.
Bosenworth. Oh yeah, Councillor
Well,
Bosenworth.
so that's what I was gonna do. Thank you.
I have a suggestion. You can just change the language. It says cottage owners and
That's not one.
businesses both are wish to see an increase in accessibility to docking, which is what both of them want to do, and that's the intent of their action.
CAO Hammond, I think, has a different idea.
So, your worship, I think I heard Mr. Cox indicate that he's going to be bringing back another report on this matter. It may be worthwhile for him to consider the request or the suggestion and come back with some changes rather than making changes on the fly here. Take a bit more of a thoughtful approach to address the issue if that works for members of council.
I see no objection to that. Have I read this resolution? No. Okay, then I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I carried. Thank you, Mr. Cox. All right, Chief Morrell.
Good afternoon, Council. I stand before you today with a report for Council. The first report is an award of contract. I'm gonna fix this. That sound better? Less feedback. Check, 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 check. Check. You stand back from the mic. I gotta push it. Super Bowl voice guy. I stand before council with a word of contract, first award of contract from our department for this year. This is for auto rescue tools. We are asking council for permission to award a contract to MES Code 4 Fire and Rescue out of Brantford, Ontario for the amount of $56,485, and that I be allowed to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. I have staff questions.
Thank you for that. Anyone with any questions on this one? I'm seeing none, so I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that contract T-2024-21 for auto rescue tools be awarded to MES Code 4 Fire and Rescue Inc. in Brantford, Ontario in the amount of $56,485, taxes excluded, and that the fire chief be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this purchase. I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Stay where you are. We got more for you. Chief Morrell, you're on the next one or two at least.
Through you to council, the second report in front of council today is an award of contract for a pumper fire apparatus. This is a pumper fire apparatus replacing the pumper fire apparatus that is located today in the Foots Bay Fire Station. We are asking council to award the contract to City View Specialty Vehicles in Mississauga, Ontario, in the amount of $579,860, taxes excluded, and that I be allowed to authorize and execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. For council's information, this is the exact same vehicle that was awarded to this contractor last year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bosenworth, you have a question?
Is an apparatus what my grandsons would call a fire truck?
Correct. Through you to the councillor, correct.
Councillor Burry.
Thank you. And through you, would this said fire truck make it down most of our smaller roads? I don't want to, I know that some of the other municipalities, not us, have sometimes bought machinery, fire trucks too big to get down. I'm asking a question that I think I know the answer of, but I think other people are interested in hearing.
Chief Morrell.
Through you to council. Yes, all the vehicles that we purchase, we ensure that they have the clearances that are required to fit down the roads that are in the township. I will say there are a few small private roads that we do have a plan for how we will attack fire in those areas. But they're very few and far between. Most of our vehicles are shaped of the same size as a Hydro One vehicle, and Hydro One gets there and gets your power on.
Okay, I see no other questions, so I'm going to ask, read this. I haven't read it. Moved by Councillor Roberts, second by Councillor Mazan, be it resolved, the contract T-2024-18 be awarded to City View Specialty Vehicles in Mississauga, Ontario, in the amount of $579,860, taxes excluded, and that the fire chief be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Stay where you are. I think the next one's yours too, isn't it? Yep. All right, next up. We're on rigid bottom inflatable boat.
Thank you. Through you to council. This is an award of contract again, the third one of the year for a rigid bottom inflatable rescue boat. This be awarded to Polaris Inflatable Boats in the amount of $50,171, taxes excluded, and then I be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. For council's information, this is an identical boat to the boat that exists today in Port Carling. And as noted in the report, we talk about why it's important to have redundant response when we attend a water emergency.
Perfect. All right. I see no immediate questions. I'll read a resolution. We can talk afterwards. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that contract T-2024-19 be awarded to Polaris Inflatable Boats Canada Ltd. in the amount of $50,171, taxes excluded, and that the fire chief be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. Any questions? Councillor Zavitz.
I've tried to explain to my good friend Councillor Berry why we would take a rubber inflatable boat to a fire. I wonder if our good chief could explain why this is the best.
Chief Morrell, I'm sure you have the answer.
Through you to council, we will have to not park the boat close to the fire. But as noted in the report, this is one of, it was a project when I arrived in the township in June of 2019, we found that we had 44 inland lakes and water bodies that we could not traverse. And the plan up until that point was to, for lack of a better term, rob somebody else of their boat and then use that and get on over to the property. That is a plan, but that plan is fraught with a lot of occupational health and safety issues. So we did develop a program that had us placing emphasis on having a rescue boat with two priorities. Number one, actually three priorities if you count swift moving water. But the first priority was, how do we get to places that are water access only properties on these inland lakes? So having two of these boats allows for one to go to the property, drop off the pumps and the first set of firefighters. The second vessel can then ferry individuals and more equipment to the island property in order to begin the firefight on these smaller lakes like 3 Mile and Brandy and any lake that has an island on it. Second to this, we also found that a certain version of boat or vessel would be more preferred. And this vessel came to us actually accidentally through the Ottawa Fire Services. If you note on Ottawa Fire Services site, they have 5 of these vessels and they use them for their swift water rescue and for accessing some parts of the river. So we found out which manufacturer they were using and then we developed a project behind that. So this vessel will never get close to a fire. It'll just access, it's just transport for our folks to get to an area where a fire could occur.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Very quickly, not only fire, on another lake, we had an individual on an island had a stroke. We had to actually carry the person down to the boat and take them to the ambulance where if we weren't around, fire could go and get them.
Through you, yes, that's correct.
Go ahead.
Councillor is correct. So yes, the medical pre-hospital care is another facet. That's why these boats are not console vessels. They actually can accommodate a stretcher.
Okay, I'm going to call a question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. I think we have one more for you, Chief Morrell. Next one up is bunker gear.
Through you to council, before you is an award of contract for bunker gear. Each and every year we purchase bunker gear for our firefighters. Up to 20 sets of bunker gear purchases. Our long-term strategy is to have enough bunker gear as seconds or reserve. Also have new gear for all of our members for the 10 years. So we spread out this purchasing 20 per year. Before you is a contract that we suggest be awarded to AJ Stone Company in the amount of $55,260, taxes excluded, and that I be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. And for council's information, this is the same bunker gear we have been wearing for the 5 years I've been here.
Thank you for that. Anyone with any questions on bunker gear? No, I'm going to read resolution. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that contract T-2024-20 be awarded to AJ Stone Company Ltd in the amount of $55,260, taxes excluded, and that the fire chief be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with the purchase. Anyone have a question or comment? No, I'll call a question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 2:30. We've been an hour and a half. Let's take 10 minutes till 20 minutes till 3. And then we will power through the rest of it. Thank you. See who's on. Is he still on? He's going, right? No, but Mel himself. Yeah, that's it. Okay. We seem to be missing one person, maybe. We're all here though, right? Sorry, we have a quorum. We're good. All right. I see Mr. Moore is up there, so he's next.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Today's report is the award of tender for the supply and delivery of a new ice resurfacer. The project was included in the 2024 capital budget to replace a similar propane machine that is currently at the end of its useful life in Bala. With that, we received 2 bids from the 2 companies in this business. And with that, as per the procurement policy, we've recommended award to the lowest bidder. Now, in saying that, I know the CAO touched on this, that through the procurement policy, it does follow the lines of that monetary value. But given Council's desire to consider environmentally friendly alternatives, we did include an option within the tender to see the price of an electric version. Just to review and consider potential moving forward, similar to our Milford Bay project this morning. So with that, you'll see in the alternatives section, there is a bit of a life cycle analysis as well there with the costs associated to an electric version. Should it be the desire of Council, it would seem through doing the operating costs as the electric version would lower the annual maintenance and operating costs associated, that if the new machine was to be provided and used in the Port Carling Arena, there would be very little cost difference between an electric and propane over the 20-year life cycle. And the reason being for that is just the more the machine gets used, the better that cost benefit becomes. So with that, if we wanted to include that as an alternative, should Council have that desire, it would make most sense for the electric one to be operated in Port Carling. The existing machine that's in Port Carling is fairly new itself too. It was just purchased in 2019. So we could simply move that one over to the Bala Arena, and it still has about 15 years of life left in it as well. So with that, I will turn it over if there's any questions.
Thank you for your report. Anyone with any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. Councillor Kent.
Sorry, just finding my unmute. Thank you. I just have one question. I guess if you present valued over a 20-year period, the outflows, it's going to look even worse because the upfront amounts are much, much higher on the electric, obviously. So your conclusion that they're about the same, let's say the Port Carling propane versus the electric, but the reality is it's going to be worse than that by a substantial margin because you're outfronting another $65,000 roughly upfront. That's just a small addendum. I believe and support in the trying to go electric, but given that this is such a long haul payback, I think it's a consideration that becomes moderately moot. It's a philosophy issue at this point.
Thank you for that. Anyone else with a question or comment? Councillor Bosenworth.
That would mean we have 2 Zambonis. And I guess that works as long as we have 2 arenas. The existing Zamboni in Port Carling, I think you said had an expected remaining life of 15 years. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
So if we had a decision that said we were only going to have 1 arena in the township, we would have a somewhat surplus Zamboni?
That was a question. Director Becking.
Thank you, Your Worship. The councillor is essentially correct. I would, however, point out that the resale market, as I understand it, is quite good on Zambonis. And I think it's also important for council to consider this purchase in the context, if we were to go to a new Arena. As outlined in the report, we wouldn't need the same exhaust and fume extraction capabilities in the new building. So there would be a corresponding improvement or savings in construction cost. So that may be another factor that may weigh on your decision.
Thank you for that. Councillor Burry?
Well, the other thing is, if we were to build a new pad or pads, sometimes you use two resurfacing machines because resurfacing machines do not have 100% reliability, and skaters get really disappointed when they, blow hydraulic lines or other things that happen. I'm back to, as a township and as a council, if we are going to talk, we better walk. Otherwise, we can shut up. So no, that's just, I maybe it's just too much exposure to universities that talk and don't do any walk. And I've become, quite sensitive to that. So if we're interested in dealing with the things in an environment first, we have to start making some decisions that'll be longer term. And if we're not, then it's quite simple. That's fine. And we can do that, but we need to stop talking about it.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Do we have the money in the 2024 budget for this?
Through you, your worship.
Sure.
So the 2024 budget included an amount of 95,000, and that's to replace a very similar propane type machine. So as stated in the report, I think it would be an additional just over $70,000 that we would need to pull from the Parks, Trails, and Recreations Reserve if council were to go the electric route.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you. I'm finding that the conversation has gone off into what we might be doing in the future. And I just wonder, are we going to be having discussions about where we're going in the future? Because I'm not clear if every meeting we're going to get together to discuss what we already approved in a budget, to then just discuss the same issues that we've all been having about, what are we doing about climate change? What are we doing about our arenas? What are we doing about our community centers? I just wonder if there's a time frame involved when we're going to get a fuller understanding of what the direction this municipality is going with these buildings and the equipment that is needed.
Thank you for your comment. I'm going to ask Director CEO Hammond, please, to speak to that.
Thanks, Your Worship. So in answer to the question, yes, there is a capital level of service study which will begin later this year. And that's the time at which there'll be lots of conversation about how council wishes to move forward with respect to infrastructure. And the arenas, et cetera, will be part of that conversation. We also have, prior to that, we're going to have a report on the arena feasibility study, which would be considered ultimately through that level of service study. And with respect to environmental matters, we have a climate mitigation plan that's ongoing, and that will factor into how we proceed down the road with environmental considerations.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read the resolution.
If I just I'm just so that the public has an understanding though, when we talk about later on down the year, so are we doing this pre-budget? Planning for the next year's budget? I just want to try to get an idea of our timeline.
CEO Hammond.
So I think first we need to identify what our vision is and identify a plan. And then I think the financial plan will accompany that, or those conversations with respect to costing, and a financing plan will follow. I believe that's the path that we've discussed when we were initially talking about the level of service study. Thank you.
Sorry if I may, that wasn't what I understand the process. What I don't understand is the timelines, because we just got an idea that we might deal with this later in the year, but all I was asking is if we're starting the budget discussions in August, I would hope these discussions are going to take place months before. So I'll leave it at that, but that's what my point was, that well, we've been all hearing about what we may be doing in the future. I just wondered when we might get at that, like if there was a planned timeline in between all of the other plans that we're doing and different things like that. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, I'm just looking at page 120. If we put the electric Zamboni in Port Carling and move the other one over, I'm looking at the total life cost is 252,707 for the propane and 252,185. So it'd be actually a savings if we move them around, if we really wanted to go with electric. And that, could you answer that? Am I right?
Mr. Moore?
Yes, through your worship. The councillor is correct. So the way the capital budget is set up is we base the annual budget and estimating based on a like-for-like replacement. So that's why you're seeing the recommendation for the propane unit. Given council's desire and staff's understanding that we want to, begin to consider more environmentally friendly options, we did a good practice this morning with the Milford Bay Community Center, and we wanted to do likewise with a situation such as this, because the option is there and it's a worthwhile consideration to evaluate. So when we did the kind of the cost benefit analysis over the life cycle of a total of the machine in total, Councillor Kent's correct. The electric is more expensive up front. The return on investment would then be over the 20 years where you would gain that in the lower annual maintenance costs. But to the councillor's question, specifically, yes, if the machine was used in Port Carling, the overall 20-year life cycle cost would be the exact same as a propane unit. And so if we were to do that, it would be wise to make that machine used in Port Carling and move the propane to Bala.
Okay, I'm going to read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that council award contract T-2024-14 to Zamboni Company, Inc. for the bid price of $96,707 plus HST. And that the Director of Operational Services be authorized to execute the necessary documents to proceed with this contract. Anybody have any other questions or comments? Are we, Councillor Bosenworth?
Just to be clear, you are suggesting we approve the propane powered Zamboni.
I wasn't actually suggesting.
Well, sorry, that's what the resolution says.
The resolution, yeah, sorry, Zamboni, correct, yeah.
Yeah, so I won't be supporting.
Okay, Councillor Mazan.
I have been listening to some of our peers, my peers, and the need for us to take steps in the direction of using electric facilities where possible. I'm really grateful. Thank you, staff, for bringing this forward. It would have been easy to just follow the current policy, but to bring forward new information is actually interesting. So I'm actually, in this particular case, interested in exploring the electrical one. So we have one of each and we start taking steps. Especially because it sounds like we can take some money out of the reserves to help offset that cost. So I think that changes perhaps what the recommendation is.
Excuse me, just one moment. Oh, yeah, if you want to speak to it, sure.
So just to clarify, are you moving that you would like to amend this resolution to move forward with the electric option?
I guess if we were getting to that direction, I thought we were in the part of discussing right now, and I'm discussed my option. I guess that is what I'm recommending. Is that to amend it to allow for an electric.
Actually, if you do the moving for.
Sorry, can I wrangle this back to control for one moment? I have a question on this issue. I haven't certainly seen enough about, and maybe it's in here and I missed it, collateral issues like is there real life experience with this somewhere else? What's the cost to replace a battery? Can we charge one of these units off of the auxiliary power unit if the main power goes out? All of those sort of issues would trouble me before. I'd want to make sure I was comfortable with them, because we're going to step up for a considerable sum of money above the budgeted amount. Like how much? 70? Double the budget. And that concerns me. I understand the need to move to green. I'm a little leery when we start making our first move, one of two critical pieces of equipment, and we haven't yet started moving, for instance, or maybe we have, fleets, part of our fleet, a couple of cars at a time, and piloting that.
Yes, sorry, through you, Chair. All very good questions. And in fact, I had a lot of the similar ones in preparing the report and reviewing the tenders, etc. I think electric Zambonis have come a long way, and they're actually widely used nowadays. We see them particularly more in cities because, again, the more they're used, the more cost benefit they are that you see out of them. So I think in terms of performance, we did review with our arena supervisor who attends, regular ORFA courses and is connected in that industry. He has no concerns regarding performance. We reviewed a lot of the different types of batteries used in these machines. This one in particular is a lithium-ion battery. So with a single charge, we can get 10 floods out of it. And it recharges at a 1 to 2 rate. So a 10-minute flood, it will recharge to full within 20 minutes. It does come with its own specialized charger, and that's the additional 5,000 cost you'll see in that table for the installation of that charger. The arena itself does have the power capability to support it. We've already checked in with that because we do get 3-phase power to the arenas, and we have the amp space on the current panel. So there would be a small installation charge for the charger itself. Battery replacement is a real thing. It occurs around the 10-year mark, and the cost is about $31,500 for replacement. Again, we've included those costs into that cost benefit analysis. So the total life cycle costs over the 20 years, all those costs have been included. So I think that answers all the questions. I'm trying to recall the ones you had, but I hope.
I think that's right. I think you got them. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Bosenworth?
Unlike the Milford Bay Community Center one, where we had a very significant upfront cost and a very significant, still, as I recall, a reasonably significant difference in the long-term running of it. This one, the upfront cost, it's 60% more, but it's not double or whatever the other one was. And whereas the previous one, I said, this is too much to adapt to. This one is within a range and is justifiable over the life cycle. And so I would be supporting changing the resolution to get the electric one.
Thank you. Councillor Kent?
Well, you jumped ahead of me in terms of asking all my questions about performance, given that it's an electric product that we haven't, doesn't have as much useful life. So that was very helpful. I guess my only, I support it that we should go ahead with the electric. I presume as well, Mr. Moore, that the battery replacement cost of 31 will probably be 15 by the time we have to replace the battery at the rate the world is going. So I think that operating expenditures will probably go down, unless, of course, it's out of, unless the electric capacity or capabilities is somehow outdated by the time we come along to replace a battery. So anyway, your questions, Mayor Kelley, jumped the gun on me. So very helpful.
Anyone, Councillor Edwards?
Yes, I think I could support the electric one. I'd like to see it go into Port Carling and the other one moved, and then it's basically a break even over 20 years. So I think like supporting it. I couldn't support this morning because it was so drastic, but this here is realistic. And if we are going to go green, we should be starting with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have to do a quick resolution to amend. Okay. All right, if no more questions, I'll read this one, which is, I think, going to bring us the resolution I already read over to the electric one, if I'm not mistaken. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Zabitz. Be it resolved that the following be struck out at the end of the first paragraph. $96,707 plus HST. And that the following be inserted in its place. $160,685 plus HST for the purchase of an electric ice resurfacer. And that an additional $70,685 be added to the project budget from the Parks, Recreation and Trails reserves. Okay, any questions on that? All right, I will call the question. All in favor? All right, I think that absolutely carried. Anyone opposed? No, I didn't see. Okay, that's good. Thank you. All right, and then the next one is the resolution that I originally read as with the amendments. Nothing to read, just move to approve the first resolution as we have just amended it. All in favor? And again, that carries. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Moore. You can't wait to get out of here. Okay, Mr. Sapko, are you present, please? Yes, there you are. We have I think two or three from you, two.
Yes, there we go. So the report before you summarizes a bylaw to create an easement for the purposes of the reconstruction of the Medora Street retaining wall. As previously reported, the site is very limited for property, and we require an easement for the sheet piling and the soil anchors that will be placed on private property. The owners of the property have agreed to grant this easement to the township, and as well as provide temporary access for reconstruction. Council approval is required via bylaw in order for this agreement to be executed by mayor and clerk. And with that, I'm available for questions that you may have. Thank you for that.
We'll turn that on. Thank you for that. Anyone with questions of Mr. Slapko? No? Thank you very much for a great report. I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that 3 readings be given to a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign documentation to enable the reconstruction and continued existence of the retaining wall located at 114 Medora Street. See no questions. I will call a question. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Go. And now you're on, and I think we're going to have a recusal on Scarcliffe Road. If you'll just give. Thank you. All right, Mr. Sopko, we'll talk about this one next.
So this report summarizes another bylaw to authorize a purchase of property that was required for safety improvements on Scarcliffe Road. If you'll remember, council previously authorized township staff to discuss purchase of two properties adjacent to Scarcliffe Road. The first property owner at the intersection of Marquee and Scarcliffe Road declined to sell the property to the township, but they have agreed to provide us permission to enter and access and do the required work. So that is acceptable. We'll be able to do the safety improvements that we require at that location. The second property owner at the top of the hill on Scarcliffe Road has agreed to sell the required lands. The sale was required because it was tied to relocation of utility poles and insufficient width of the right of way at that location. So having this purchase will allow us to complete the planned safety improvements. The required funds are already available and have been carried over from the 2023 Scarcliffe Road Utility Relocation Project. And again, with this one, council approval is required via bylaw to execute the agreement. And some additional information, the bylaw will also dedicate the property when it's in township ownership that is part of the road allowance as well.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read a resolution. This is a pretty simple one. Moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that 3 readings be given to bylaw 2024-022 to purchase part 1 on plan 35R-27315 for the sum of $8,210 and to dedicate the lands as public highway. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Donaldson. Talk about fees and charges. Set a new schedule.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council. So this is a report just to do a little bit of housekeeping on our fees and charges bylaw, following up on a couple of resolutions that were passed by various committees with respect to changes to some of the fees, as well as some housekeeping and amendments, corrections that needed to be made that were caught after the bylaw was passed late last year. So if there's any questions on the report, happy to entertain those.
Thank you for your report. I'm going to read a resolution and then we can discuss if we wish. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that fees and charges amending bylaw 2024-003 as attached to report FIN-2024-001 be presented for final adoption. Anybody with any comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. The most efficient one today. Numbers guy. All right, next is our CAO, and he's going to speak about the strategic plan process. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of council. So members will recall in December that council approved committee's recommendation respecting the update of our strategic plan. You'll also recall that funds were included in the 2023 budget for this purpose. The report before you outlines the results of the review of RFP submissions by the senior leadership team, and there's a recommendation in the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone with any questions before I read a resolution? I'm seeing none. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the assignment for the completion of the strategic plan review and update be awarded to the firm of Strategy Corp, Inc. in the amount of $72,407 plus HST, and that an agreement satisfactory to the CAO and the township solicitor be entered into with the consultant, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign any necessary documentation. Any questions or comments on this? Call a question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.
Something wrong with the audio?
Nothing at all, except the mic was off. I'll start that again because it's short. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-022 being a bylaw to acquire part of lot 34, concession 13, geographic township of Monk, now in the township of Muskoka Lakes in the district municipality of Muskoka, designated as part 1 on plan 35R-27315, identified as part of parcel register /PIN 48159-0092LT, and to establish said part 1 on plan 35R-27315 as part of the municipal highway system be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Okay. Any questions? Can I call a question? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. There we go. Fees and charges. Okay, next up, bylaw moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-003, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2023-109, a bylaw with respect to the establishment and requirements for the payment of various fees and charges for information services activities and the use of the township property for the corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Next one relates to the retaining wall. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-011, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an easement agreement with Kirkwood Commercial Corp. and the Corporation of the Township of Muskoka Lakes, the Township, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Number 4. Okay. Is anyone speaking to this? Or no? No? Okay. None? Okay. Good. Okay. Okay. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Lake Muskoka lying in front of Concession 9, Lot 26, Monk, designated as Part 2 on Plan 35R-27301-Landry-Roll 9-10-001 be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-017 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of the original shore road allowance designated as Part 2 on 35R-27301 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. All right. Another one. Okay, moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that the original shore road the original road allowance between concessions 12 and 13 in front of Lot 30 of the geographic township of Medora, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes in the district municipality of Muskoka, be declared as surplus land, and that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that bylaw 2024-018 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original road allowance designated as parts 1, 2, and 3, Plan 35R-27239 be given 3 readings and finally passed. Any questions? Any comments? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Next one, moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Mazan. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on 3 Mile Lake lying in front of Concession 7, Part Lot 17 Watt, designated as Part 1 on Plan 35R-27235-Gibbons/McBay, roll 2-17-088 be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001. And that bylaw 2024-023 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as Part 1 on 35R-27235 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Which one am I on? Okay, next up, moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that the original shore road allowance on Skeleton Lake lying in front of concession 13 part lot 10 Watt, designated as part 2 on plan 35R-27328- JSL Waterfront Resorts Ltd, roll 2-22-032 be declared as surplus land. And that the clerk is hereby instructed to dispose of the said property pursuant to sections 8, 9, and 11 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that bylaw 2024-024 to stop up, close, and convey that portion of original shore road allowance designated as part 2 on 35R-27328 be given 3 readings and passed. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. Is someone speaking on this next one, community preparedness? All right, we'll call Chief Morrell, please, to speak on community preparedness.
Yeah, as council may recall, I believe there was a report brought to committee, informing committee of the Emergency Services Department intent to apply for a grant for the Community Emergency Management Grant, which is the grant program that was put out by the Emergency Management Ontario Group, which is now part of the Ministry of Housing. What has happened is during the process of applying for that grant, we were able to discover that we wouldn't be successful at applying for the grant without bringing this back to council and getting a resolution from council in a bylaw that says that we can apply for this grant. That is why it's before you today. For information purposes, the report was delivered to committee, to committee in November 16th, I believe.
Thank you. Any questions for Chief Morrell? Seeing none, I'll read a resolution. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-016, being a bylaw to allow application for a community preparedness grant for the Township of Muskoka Lakes, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? Oh, that was a question? No. All in favor? Okay.
There's a question to be in favor.
Yeah, question being just a little too soon. That's good. I got it. That carried. Thank you. We got it. Okay. Is anyone speaking on this next one? Okay. Cool. Ms. Walker, I think you're up for this next issue. Please, if you would.
Okay, and this is the Clow and Fung. Is this the zoning bylaw amendment for Clow and Fung?
Number 9? No. Oh, they're not in order, so I'll shuffle them a bit. It is now.
Okay.
Bomb, yes.
So we're skipping to B1?
Yes, please.
Okay. So in January, Planning Committee heard ZBA 3723, bylaw 2023-131 in the name of Clow and Fung. The subject properties are known municipally as 1603 and 1611 Peninsula Road. The application was submitted concurrently with consent application B 515223 ML, amended for 2 lot additions. If the application is approved, it will provide exemptions from waterfront residential WR4 zone minimum lot requirements for resultant lot number 1 and number 2, and recognize the resultant dock width on resultant lot 2, and recognize the resultant lot coverage on resultant lot 2. In January, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application subject to the following minor amendments: that the lot area of resultant lot 1, Fong, the frontage of resultant lot 2, Clow, and the updated resultant cumulative dock width of resultant lot 2 be revised along with any necessary revisions to Schedule 2, and that the exemptions from the minimum lot area requirement and maximum lot coverage requirement be removed for resultant lot 2. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I apologize for getting mixed up in the order. Anybody with questions on this one? Comments? Oh, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-131 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Clow and Fong, roll numbers 4-11-035 and 4-11-044 be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Oh, the same one. All right, there's a minor amendment on that one. I'll read next. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that Township Council amend bylaw 2023-131, Plow and Fong, roll numbers 4-11-035 and 4-11-044. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of: first, that the lot area of resultant lot number 1, Fong, frontage of resultant lot number 2, Clow, and updated resultant cumulative dock width of resultant lot number 2, Clow, be revised, along with any necessary revisions to Schedule 2, and that exemptions from the minimum lot area requirement and maximum lot coverage requirement be removed for resultant lot number 2, Clow. Okay, any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. And then for the final reading on that same one, moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-131, Plow and Fong, roll numbers 4-11-035 and 4-11-044 be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Yeah, we can do it anyways. Okay. All right, so we're going to go back to the two that I accidentally skipped, which is 9 and 10. I'm going to read the first one. First resolution moved by Councillor McIntyre, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-025, a bylaw to deem lot 72 on plan 19 in the former Township of Medora, now in the Township of Muskoka Lakes District, Municipality of Muskoka, being a lot on a plan of subdivision, is hereby deemed not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision for the purposes of section 50 sub 3 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended. Smith, roll number 7-10-011-01 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. And finally, number 10, moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-026 to designate site plan control Donaldson and Sift, part of Island M2, Meta Island, Lake Muskoka, Medora, roll number 6-27-011 be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. Anybody with a question, comment? All right, we'll start with Councillor Bosenworth and Councillor Kent.
Just to confirm this, we're giving them the ability to have site plan control on that Meta Island, which was quite controversial, and this is just sort of a procedural thing to make sure we have the site plan control in place.
Who among staff would confirm that?
Mr. Pink, would you like me to repeat the question?
If you could, thank you.
Yes, sir. 2-0. Where was it? Oh, yes, the question is, this provision is just allowing you to have site plan control on this application?
Through your worship, I believe this is an actual lot creation application. One of the conditions of consent approval is that site plan control be imposed on the properties. So this will fulfill that condition and impose site plan on future development.
Just to be clear, thank you very much.
Councillor Kent?
And just another point of clarity from Mr. Pink, please. Why would this come forward now? Because I believe we approved this like back in September or October or something. And that was why it was a little out of context in that it arrived in the agenda today.
Dr. Pink?
Thank you. Through you. Typically, when it's a condition of a zoning approval, that's something dictated by council. We bring it to the following meeting, or typically when the bylaw is passed. With consents, applicants may not fulfill conditions or may walk away. So we typically wait for them to make the request and we bring it forward. They have 2 years to fulfill conditions. And they just actually, to add even further background, those approvals were actually appealed. Those appeals were actually just withdrawn and the applicant's now fulfilling conditions. So they made the request.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Did I call a question? No. I read it though. Then I'm going to call a question since I see no other question. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Who's up here? There's a presentation? Okay. All right. Okay. This one has no presentation. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-135 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, the Centennial Avenue LLC, roll number 4-5-043-01, be read a first and second time. Any questions? I'll call it. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Now, there are no minor amendments, so we're going to read this one next. Moved by Councillor Edwards, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-135, the Centennial Avenue LLC, roll number 4-5-043-01, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Walker. You're on this next one. Nachu.
Thank you, Mayor Kelley. In January, Planning Committee heard ZBA 38/23 bylaw 2023-133 in the name of Natu. The subject property is known municipally as 1 Victoria Island M5. If the application is approved, it will permit the redevelopment of a sleeping cabin in Sundex on a lot with more than one dwelling, and it will permit exemptions from the minimum front yard setback requirements. In January, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application subject to the following minor amendments. That the references to the dwelling/cottage number 3 in section 1 to the sleeping cabin be changed. That an updated schedule 2 be accurately depicted to depict the use of the existing and proposed habitable buildings. 3, that a height exemption to permit a sleeping cabin at a height of 26.5 feet be included, and that an elevation drawing of the proposed sleeping cabin be included as Schedule 3. I have no further comments, but I'm happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any questions for Ms. Walker? Seeing none, we have 3 resolutions to work through here. Thank you very much. First one is moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-133 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Natu, roll number 6-27-006, be read a first and second time. No questions? All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Okay. Next is moved by Councillor Zabit, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2023-133 bracket NATU roll number 6-27-006 bracket. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of: first, the references to dwelling/cottage number 3 in section 1 to a sleeping cabin being changed. Next, an updated Schedule 2 to accurately depict the use of existing and proposed habitable buildings, 3 dwellings and 1 sleeping cabin being required. Number 3, a height exemption to permit a sleeping cabin height of 26.5 feet being included. And finally, an elevation drawing of the proposed sleeping cabin being included as Schedule 3. Anybody with any questions on that? All in favor? Thank you. That sounds like Yoda. Okay, next one up, last piece on NATU is moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor McIntyre. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-133 NATU roll number 6-27-006 be read a third time and finally passed. Any questions? All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Ms. Walker, you're up again with a minor amendment here on this one. Knowlton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Kelley. In January, Planning Committee heard ZBA 18/23 amended bylaw 2023-092 in the name of Knowlton. The subject property is known municipally as 1998 Windermere Road. If the application is approved, it will permit a lot coverage of 5.7%, which would permit a dwelling and porch addition and recognize an as-built carport. In January, Planning Committee recommended approval of the application subject to the following minor amendment: that bylaw 2023-092 and Schedule 2 be updated to reflect the amended proposal. I have no further comments, but would be happy to assist council with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, I will thank you for your presentation and I will work through these ones. First, moved by Councillor Mazan, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-092 to amend comprehensive zoning bylaw 2014-14, Knowlton, roll number 2-10-051-02, be read a first and second time. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. You can stand. I no issue. I just couldn't see Councillor Kent. Okay, next up. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved, the Township Council amend bylaw 2023-092, Knowlton, roll number 2-10-051-02. And these amendments are minor in nature and do not require further public circulation and are hereby approved prior to third reading. The amendments shall consist of that bylaw 2023-092 and Schedule 2 be updated to reflect the amended proposal. Anybody with any questions? I'll call it. All in favor? All in question. Thank you. Okay. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Be it resolved that bylaw 2023-092, Knowlton, roll number 2-10-051-02, be read a third time and finally passed. All in favor? Thank you very much. And you have something I read now. So we're going to go into closed session. I read this right now. We're going to go into closed. Oh no, we'll write that down in a minute. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved, the council in closed session convene at 3:35. That was a short meeting. PM 4, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239(2) (c) of the Municipal Act 2001, report CCS-2024-03, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239 sub 2 sub C of the Municipal Act 2001, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, section 239 sub 2 sub F of the Municipal Act 2001, and verbal update from the Director of Legislative Services / clerk. All in favor? Thank you. That carries.